For thousands of years, night enveloped the earth in darkness. But a century and a half ago, one man revolutionized this process. This remarkable scientist, who gained considerable fame due to his discoveries, changed the world as we know it. Streetlights illuminate the streets, and light bulbs shine in homes, allowing us to wash laundry and heat food with just the push of a button. He also laid the groundwork for radio communication, predicted the development of drones, Wi-Fi, and mobile communication. Streets, units of measurement, and the most popular electric car are named in his honor. But this is only part of the story. In fact, the narrative becomes even more captivating. The same man in question repeatedly betrayed his business partners and often found himself a victim in similar situations, ending his life in poverty. He conducted experiments with electricity, suffered from eccentric phobias, was fascinated by esotericism, and slept only 2 hours a night. Moreover, there is an opinion that he remained a virgin throughout his life. His absurd ideas included projects to provide the planet with free electricity, and he claimed he could see spirits and communicate with Martians. Some even consider him a representative of another civilization. It seems that only one person in history could embody all these qualities: Nikola Tesla. In this video, we will attempt to explore why Tesla became one of the most famous scientists in the world, why he was forgotten for half a century, and how his name has once again become relevant. Who was Nikola Tesla, really? What inventions are attributed to him? Why did the FBI seize his documents after his death, and for what purpose? Many people believe that Tesla could have created paradise on Earth, but he was not allowed to do so. When most of us hear the name Tesla, the first thing that comes to mind is the car. We associate this name not only with the vehicle, but also with the man. Elon Musk, the CEO of Tesla and one of the richest people in the world, brought this brand to life, becoming a well-known manufacturer of electric cars. For many, this seems logical. The scientist Tesla is associated with electricity. The Tesla car is electric, and Elon Musk, being an admirer of his ideas, named the car in his honor. However, this is not entirely accurate. Let's dispel a few myths. Elon Musk did not found Tesla. He joined the company as an investor in its early stages and later became the CEO. By the time he arrived, the company was already named Tesla. Moreover, Musk himself did not. Let's dispel a few myths. According to interviews, he actually admires Thomas Edison more. You will learn more about Edison while watching the video, including the fact that he and Tesla were enemies. Many believe that Edison played a key role in Tesla dying in poverty and not being able to complete the experiments that could have changed the world. What experiments are we talking about? Perhaps the most fascinating part of this story involves experiments related to mysticism, electric current, extraterrestrial intelligence, energy, vibrations, and other wonders relevant to a serious scientist. After Tesla's death, the FBI seized numerous documents related to his experiments. Why did this happen? This is an important question. Today, his image can be found on T-shirts, memes, and stickers in messaging apps. But what was his contribution? What discoveries did he make? Only a few know this, and today you will become one of them. Let's first travel back a century and a half. Young Nikola Tesla worked for several years at the European branch of Thomas Edison's Electric Company in Paris, focusing on lamp production, power plant construction, and street lighting. At that time, the electrical industry was as popular and promising as information technology is today. Tesla was an ordinary engineer who would likely have struggled to achieve career success not due to a lack of talent, but rather because of an excess of it. Nikola decides to change the world and borrows money from relatives. He boards a steamship and sets off across the Atlantic in 1884. The 29-year-old Serbian goes to the United States not by chance. His idol, Thomas Edison, works there. Today, most people know Edison as the inventor of the light bulb, which is sad since that invention existed before him. Moreover, Edison is an outstanding figure of a scale that is hard to overestimate. If one were to look for a modern equivalent, it would be Elon Musk multiplied by 10. In the mid-1880s, Thomas Edison is not only a symbol of he is not yet 40, and his company has already released the world's first phonograph and an incandescent lamp capable of lasting much longer than similar devices from competitors. Edison is on the verge of illuminating the homes of New Yorkers and then the entire world with the electric light bulb, which has become a staple for modern individuals. The press refers to Edison as a wizard, and numerous talented dreamers from all corners of the world aspire to enter his laboratory. Among them is Nikola Tesla, our hero, who believes Edison is the only person capable of understanding his ideas. The most revolutionary of these ideas pertain to alternating current, which in the mid-80s is still poorly understood but has the potential to change lives around the world. And it will. When Nikola Tesla arrives in America, the prospects of using alternating current raised doubts among many, including Thomas Edison himself. Edison promotes, the main idea is alternating current, while he promotes direct current. I understand that many questions arise. Why is so much attention given to Edison in Tesla's biography? What is really happening with those theories about Martians, virginity, and mysticism? And what exactly are direct and alternating current? Strangely enough, all these topics are interconnected, so don't worry. You will get your answers. Let's start with the question of current. The ideas of Edison and Tesla in this area were so contradictory that their disputes went down in history as the War of Currents. During this conflict, many animals and people suffered, and Tesla and his idol Edison would effectively become enemies. This struggle will forever change life on Earth. Thus, the War of Currents represents a key chapter in the history of Nikola Tesla, after which his name will be forever remembered in science. The confrontation begins in the late 1870s. At this time, Nikola Tesla, the son of a Serbian Orthodox priest, is studying at a prestigious polytechnic university in Austria and achieving excellent results. His main interests include physics, engineering, and, surprisingly, languages. Tesla studies nearly a dozen foreign languages and reads works by authors such as Shakespeare, Goethe, and Voltaire. Once he starts a book by a particular writer, he cannot stop at one or two works. He feels compelled to read them all. This trait resembles a modern manifestation of obsessive-compulsive disorder, OCD. Tesla's unusual phobias and fixation on certain aspects, particularly his inventions and theories, become key elements in his student life. Since childhood, he has been fascinated by electricity. During one of the lectures, the physics professor demonstrates a direct current device that requires a switch, a device that converts alternating current into direct current. Without this device, the apparatus does not function. Tesla instinctively objects. The switch, he states, is completely unnecessary. The device should work without it. Tesla intuitively engages in a debate with the instructor, asserting, "The switch is unnecessary. The motor will work better without friction and breakdowns." The professor immediately refutes his arguments, unaware that the young man has OCD. In the following years, Tesla will persistently try to justify his position. Now it's time to talk about physics, especially about current. This is essential for understanding Tesla's personality, his conflicts with Edison, and other topics I am going to discuss. I promise it will be brief and clear. If I could grasp this with a C in physics, then you will definitely manage. Let's get started. We have a small motor that needs current to rotate. A battery can be used as the power source. Thus, a simple electrical circuit is formed. Electrons move from the battery to the motor, causing it to spin. The key point is that the electrons move uniformly. This is what direct current is. On the graph, this can be represented as a smooth flow of water through a pipe in one direction, which corresponds to direct current. Alternating current is a completely different phenomenon. Here, we need to connect a light bulb, and instead of a weak battery, we will have a wall switch. When pressed, current begins to flow to the light bulb. However, in this case, the current is alternating. Electrons move unevenly, rapidly changing direction back and forth. On the graph, this movement appears wavy, and at the peak, values at the top and bottom, the light bulb shines brighter. Thus, the light in the apartment flickers constantly, but in reality, this happens very quickly, 50 to 60 times per second. Our eyes are unable to perceive this speed, so it appears that the bulbs are burning steadily. How is this related to the topic, you may ask? For this, His idol Edison is slowly changing the world. He invented the phonograph, a device for recording and reproducing sound. For the first time in human history, the human voice could be captured, which was a true sensation. But an even more ambitious project awaited Edison: electric lighting. At that time, people were already using various methods to illuminate rooms and streets. Gas lamps were mainly used in homes, which were inconvenient, unsafe, and emitted an unpleasant odor. The concept of the incandescent bulb was already known, and many inventors sought to create a safe version with a long operating time. Edison was the first to achieve this by developing a carbon filament bulb capable of burning for up to 1,000 hours. But the main task is not just to create a multitude of light bulbs. It is necessary to determine how they will receive electricity. A whole system needs to be developed. Generators, wires, insulation, and more. In the early 1880s, Edison's company began the electrification of a small area in Manhattan, New York. The entrepreneur planned to install millions of light bulbs and illuminate hundreds of thousands of homes. However, several serious obstacles arose in his path, the main one being that Thomas Edison advocated for the use of direct current, which flows in one direction. However, the problem with using direct current is that a very large amount of electricity is required to power the light bulbs. This necessitates the installation of thick wires, leading to significant costs. Additionally, direct current loses strength as it travels through the wires. Therefore, Edison had to install generators practically in backyards to maintain the necessary voltage in the network. This causes dissatisfaction among residents, as the generators are bulky and noisy, and the system can only be effectively used in large, densely populated cities. Although electric lighting looks impressive, it is still inaccessible to most people. However, if you are not a wealthy resident of a large city, lighting is practically out of reach for you. Meanwhile, a young European clerk, Nikola Tesla, had already found a solution to this problem. Following a humiliating incident during a lecture at the university, he spent many years working on issues related to alternating current. The nature of electric current is such that it is alternating, which makes it much more efficient for lighting homes and streets. Thick wires are no longer needed for power transmission, and generators can be located at a considerable distance from energy consumers. In the early 1880s, after spending hundreds of thousands of hours in contemplation and calculations, Tesla sketches out a design for an alternating current motor on the ground during a walk in the park. He would then spend several more years working at Edison's company in Paris before heading to New York. One might expect that upon arriving in the U.S., Edison would meet Tesla, familiarize himself with his outstanding ideas, and immediately begin to implement them. However, as you may have already understood, events unfolded quite differently. Initially, Tesla, a promising Serb, secures a job in Edison's laboratory, where he repairs direct current generators. As the inventor later recalled, he worked tirelessly from 10:00 a.m. to 5:00 a.m. the next day for a modest wage. During this time, he attempted to capture Edison's attention and convey to him the concept of an alternating current motor. The reasons why Tesla was unable to realize his ideas remain unclear. There is a legend that Edison or one of his managers offered Tesla $50,000 for improving the efficiency of the direct current generator. For that time, this was a substantial amount, equivalent to over $1 million today, a rather generous reward. Tesla successfully completed the task. When he asked to be paid for his work, Edison reportedly laughed and said it was just a joke, while the young Serb, a generous reward. It is unclear whether this situation actually occurred, as a written contract for $50,000 has yet to be found. However, Edison was known for his grand promises, which often did not align with reality. It is known that 6 months later, Tesla left the company. He had no chance to promote his ideas for alternating current, and there could be various reasons for this. First and foremost, Edison likely genuinely worried about the risks associated with using alternating current, as it can indeed pose a threat to human safety. Secondly, Edison's system was entirely based on direct current. The third reason is that he may not have fully understood the nature of alternating current. Edison had no formal education. His knowledge was limited to what he learned in school. He is a vivid example of the American dream, a self-made man who achieved success through perseverance, curiosity, and occasional hardships. Edison famously stated, "My plan did not fail. I simply found 1,000 ways that didn't work." This reflects his approach, which was based on constant trial and error. To understand the principles of alternating current, a different approach was needed, like that of Tesla. Unlike Edison, he received a good education, although he technically did not graduate from university in Austria. Nikola did not pass his final exams due to issues with gambling and alcohol, but prior to that, he had excellent results. According to Tesla, Edison could have saved 90% of his time if he had conducted thorough calculations before starting his experiments. However, the main difference between them was that Edison focused on sales as the primary measure of success and was not genuinely interested in innovations. In contrast, Tesla did not view his inventions as commercial products, despite lacking entrepreneurial skills. Despite his lack of business skills, Nikola Tesla left Edison and founded his own company. He began to obtain patents for his developments in alternating current, including generators, transformers, and motors. Soon, Tesla found business partners and worked on improving the design of the arc lamp and other projects. After earning his first profit, the scientist immediately moved into a comfortable apartment in Manhattan. However, the partnership ends quickly. Tesla's partners show no interest in alternating current and soon push him out of the company, claiming rights to his developments. Left without funds and a business, Tesla begins working on wiring for Edison's company. This is a difficult period for the talented engineer, and at times, he even struggles to afford food. Working with a shovel is clearly not the best option for a person with a good education and many language skills. Fortunately, at this point in history, Tesla is not alone. He meets some businessmen willing to invest in his ideas about alternating current. In the event of success, this could bring in millions of dollars. The engineer's new company catches the attention of George Westinghouse, a wealthy industrialist who made his fortune by developing brakes for trains during the rapid expansion of the railroads. Westinghouse realizes that electricity is the future, and whoever comes out on top in this race will reap enormous profits. Although Westinghouse is neither a scientist nor a prophet and cannot confidently predict which type of current will become dominant and widely used, he invests in both direct current and alternating current developments. It takes several more years for Tesla and his partners to convince Westinghouse of the superiority of alternating current. Ultimately, the businessman offers Tesla a substantial sum for the rights to the patents and, more importantly, a royalty of $1 for every horsepower produced using his developments. The amounts I am referring to are from the late 19th century, and they can easily be multiplied by 30 for an accurate assessment in today's terms. Furthermore, the royalties could make Tesla a multimillionaire, as electricity will be in demand everywhere. Thus, Westinghouse ultimately supports alternating current, leading to an escalation of the conflict with Edison. Nikola Tesla moves to Pittsburgh to work in Westinghouse's laboratory. Meanwhile, Edison is unwilling to back down and launches an aggressive campaign of negative marketing. Edison's main goal becomes to convince the public that alternating current is dangerous. There was indeed a grain of common sense in his claims. However, it is worth noting that many potentially dangerous things are used by us, such as fire and gas. Furthermore, the methods employed by Edison for public combat were frankly radical. To demonstrate the dangers of alternating current, Edison conducts experiments on various animals, including dogs, pigs, and even an elephant. Some of these experiments he records on a prototype camera. The methods were indeed radical. Naturally, the animals die. Another aspect is the electric chair, developed by Edison's company. Authorities use this innovation as a lethal instrument powered by alternating current, which is supposedly capable of quickly killing a person. In practice, however, many complex questions arise. What should the voltage be, and how long should it be applied? In 1890, the first execution using the electric chair takes place, but everything goes awry, and the process drags on for several minutes. The prisoner endures unbearable suffering and remains alive, which leads to an increase in voltage to complete the execution. Ultimately, the victim's body begins to spark. Part of Edison's plan is realized. Westinghouse tries to distance himself from the situation, but his business is in a difficult position. Along with the damaged reputation of alternating current, the company faces high expenses and numerous lawsuits, including a case with those claiming priority in his developments. Part of Edison's plan is realized. Later, the court grants the scientist full rights to the motor and other developments in the field of alternating current. But the legal battles continue for many years. Westinghouse allegedly offers the engineer to forego the royalty of $2.50 for each horsepower in order to continue the work. Tesla is said to accept this offer. If this were true, it would become the largest financial mistake in Tesla's career. He could have at least discussed a smaller percentage. Royalties would have provided the engineer not only with a substantial fortune, freeing him from poverty, but also with the opportunity to continue his ambitious projects that could revolutionize the world. However, Tesla simply lacked the funds. On the other hand, there is no contract between Westinghouse and Tesla, which raises doubts about its existence. However, it is worth noting that Westinghouse showed faith in Tesla despite the uncertain prospects. In 1893, two events occur. In 1893, two significant events occur in Tesla's life and his developments in alternating current. The latest technological advancements are showcased at the World's Fair in Chicago, and the Westinghouse Company receives permission to light its pavilion using its alternating current system. A dozen generators created by Tesla provide more electricity than the entire city of Chicago at that time, and the fair is illuminated to the amazement of all the guests. 6 months later, Tesla, along with the Westinghouse Company, receives permission to build an alternating current generator system at Niagara Falls. The powerful water flows generate energy that powers the generators and produces enough electricity to light up almost the entire northeastern part of the United States. For Tesla, this represents two significant victories. Firstly, alternating current is finally recognized as a superior technology compared to direct current. And secondly, the construction of the generator system at Niagara Falls is a substantial step towards harnessing natural forces for the benefit of humanity, which will become Tesla's lifelong goal. For Tesla, these are two important victories. At that moment, most companies, including General Electric, recognized the advantages of alternating current, and Edison was forced to leave his company, admitting defeat. Since then, alternating current has fundamentally changed life on Earth. Every time we turn on a light or plug in an electrical device, no matter where we are utilizing his achievement thanks to Nikola Tesla. By the way, an interesting fact about outlets and electrical devices: many appliances in our homes operate on direct current. You have probably noticed a small box on the charging cables for laptops or other devices. It is designed to convert the alternating current from the outlet into direct current. Let's return to the 1890s. During this time, Tesla becomes a celebrity and gains American citizenship. Despite waiving royalties in favor of Westinghouse, he has already achieved considerable wealth. He is not yet 40 years old, but he is already in the upper echelons of New York's elite. Tesla lives in a luxurious hotel, frequents prestigious restaurants, and always looks elegant, as can be seen in several photographs. Tesla is a captivating conversationalist, fluent in several languages and remembered by many poets and writers, which allows him to discuss a wide range of topics. This suggests a rich personal life. However, the situation should be viewed differently. Tesla attracts the attention of both single and married women from high society, who write him letters and invite him to dinners. Nevertheless, he himself seems completely indifferent to this. There were rumors about Tesla's possible homosexuality, but most researchers now believe that he was heterosexual and completely abstained from intimate relationships. It is possible that he never had such experiences. One of the reasons for this may have been his desire to dedicate himself to science and work, something he acknowledged in his memoirs. On the other hand, the inventor had numerous phobias, which made it difficult for him to maintain close relationships. Tesla suffered from germophobia. He was afraid of germs and avoided touching them. He could not tolerate contact with other people's hair or women's jewelry. In addition, Tesla was obsessed with the number 3, believing that everything in his life should be a multiple of this digit. For example, he would walk around a building 3 times before entering and would choose hotel room numbers that were divisible by 3. After such facts about Tesla, one cannot help but think of Freud, and there is a curiosity to learn more about his childhood, although Tesla's childhood was, of course, entirely different. 1856. In the midst of a summer storm in a small village of the Smiljan Empire, now located in Croatia, Nikola will become the 4th of 5 children in the family. He will have 3 sisters and 2 brothers. Thus, Tesla. Tesla undoubtedly inherited fortunate genes. His father was a Serbian Orthodox priest with a good education, and his uncle was a professor of mathematics. His mother, although she managed the household, possessed outstanding engineering skills. According to Tesla's recollections, she invented numerous household tools for their farm, from a butter churn to weaving equipment. At the age of 5, Nick lost his older brother, who died in a fall from a horse, which likely had a significant impact on his later personality. After this loss, he began to avoid interactions with both peers and parents. By his teenage years, Tesla had developed many of his unusual phobias, including a fear of women's jewelry and an aversion to touching hair, as well as anxiety at the sight of feathers. The only means of socialization for the teenager was science, through which he interacted with those around him. After finishing his studies, Nico was supposed to continue the family tradition and become a clergyman, but unfortunately, he was afflicted by illness. During that time, the country was experiencing a cholera epidemic, and Nikola spent almost a year in bed. According to his own recollections, science became the only means for the teenager to socialize. His father supported his choice, and it was the right decision. Tesla, in the role of a clergyman, would hardly have been successful, for as the engineer himself noted, "I love not people, but humanity." Nikola Tesla began his studies at the Austrian Polytechnic Institute and then continued at the University of Prague, where he excelled but ultimately did not graduate from either institution. After several years of working as an engineer in telephone and electrical companies, he moved to New York. The subsequent stages of his career and his path to success are likely familiar to you. This brings us to a conclusion, as I have already discussed Tesla's main achievements that secured his place in the history of science, particularly his work with alternating current. However, the most fascinating events in the inventor's life begin after his interactions with Martians, as well as his exploration of esotericism, mysteries, and mysticism. In the mid-1890s, Nikola. Yes, Tesla has his quirks, but it is precisely these that contribute to his popularity. The inventor enjoys parties for two reasons. First, he appreciates luxury, fine food, and expensive hotels. Second, such events allow him to build professional connections, which today are referred to as networking. In New York circles, one can encounter not only the famous writer Mark Twain, but also some of the wealthiest individuals, such as John Jacob Astor and J.P. Morgan. They may invest in Tesla's latest developments, and the inventor has intriguing ideas to present. In his public lectures, he demonstrates astonishing experiments. He passes electric current through his body and makes lamps glow without wires simply by holding them in his hands. For an ordinary person in the late 19th century, even turning water into wine would pale in comparison to his performances. Undoubtedly, there is a rational explanation for Tesla's presentations, but the tricks on which he bases his demonstrations are unlikely to. Although tricks cannot change life on the planet, Tesla's performances, on the contrary, stand out for three important aspects. The first aspect is the Tesla coil, or transformer. This device can generate very high electrical voltage and creates an impressive spectacle. Therefore, such devices can still be seen in science museums today. The second fascinating aspect is the wireless glowing lamps. How does this work? This will be discussed further. You are all familiar with fluorescent lamps, also known as gas discharge lamps. Unlike incandescent bulbs, they contain gas that begins to glow when electricity is applied. In Tesla's hands was an early version of this lamp. To activate the gas inside it, a connection to wires is not necessary. It's enough for an energy source to be nearby. They are called gas discharge lamps, which distinguishes them from incandescent bulbs. The final fascinating aspect of his performances is the electric current passing through his body. So why was Tesla safe? After all, we recently discussed electric chairs. Here, he employed a clever approach. If the electric charge is high frequency but low power, it can power lamps in his hands without endangering a person's life. However, this does not mean that the process was pleasant. Tesla himself spoke of the pain and burns he sometimes experienced during the demonstrations. The inventor referred to his light as cold, in contrast to the warm light of incandescent bulbs. You have probably noticed that fluorescent lamps emit a different shade of light. By using cold light, Tesla caught the attention of millionaire John Jacob Astor, to whom he explained that with the development of electricity, people would need millions of lamps. His idea was more profitable and economical compared to incandescent bulbs, and Astor believed in it, providing him with a significant sum for that time, $100,000. This funding was necessary for Tesla to create a new large-scale laboratory. In fact, the investments in laboratory are not needed by Tesla for work on lamps. He is not interested in profit. What matters much more to him is the future of humanity. Tesla believes that light, electricity, sound, and images are all forms of energy that can theoretically be transmitted through space without wires. It is this idea that captures his attention. In 1899, he leaves the luxurious hotels and restaurants of New York to head to a secluded place, Colorado Springs. Many of you have likely come across the famous portraits of Tesla that have become memes, as well as a photograph from his laboratory in Colorado. In this picture, a huge coil is depicted emitting what is likely millions of volts of electricity, while the scientist himself calmly reads a book. In fact, this is a photo montage made up of two combined images. First, the inventor himself was captured in the laboratory, and then a second shot was taken of the working transformer without his presence. Otherwise, Tesla could have received a fatal electric shock. It is especially important to understand the primary goal for which the large-scale laboratory in Colorado Springs was built. Tesla envisioned transmitting electricity around the world wirelessly and almost for free. How is this possible? At the end of the 19th century, physicist Hertz proved the existence of electromagnetic waves, establishing that an electrical signal can be generated in one location and transmitted to another without wires, provided that the transmitter and receiver are tuned to the same frequency. Today, both radio and television use this concept. Why not apply the same approach to the transmission of electricity? With such thoughts, Tesla arrives in the small town of Colorado Springs. He tells almost no one about his intentions, except for his experiments with wireless energy transmission. His plans also included the so-called Martians. But let's take it step by step. The large laboratory is ready, and the equipment is now capable of generating. Tesla reasoned by analogy with the transmission of electricity. On the fence, Tesla hangs a huge sign with the warning, "Do not enter, will kill." During one of the experiments, the voltage reaches such levels that the entire town of Colorado Springs is plunged into darkness. For almost a year, Tesla conducts experiments and claims to have made significant advancements that bring him closer to free wireless transmission of electricity. However, no concrete evidence of this fact has been presented. In theory, if a sufficiently strong electric charge is sent using a Tesla coil, it is possible to light a bulb at a considerable distance. But the ideal picture, in which electricity is available everywhere, free of charge and without wires, and devices operate without being plugged into an outlet, is indeed unattainable. For example, nevertheless, this is impossible. A good example is mobile communication. We have long been using wireless phones, and the signal easily overcomes obstacles. This is how Tesla envisioned the interaction with electricity. However, the amount of energy required to transmit a cellular signal is minimal, which is why mobile communication is not considered dangerous, despite the opinions of some. Nevertheless, it is difficult to imagine that a significant amount of energy needed to power a light bulb or electronics can pass through walls in our bodies. This is why we use wires that are laid underground or erected on tall poles, and why insulation is necessary. Furthermore, even disregarding safety concerns, wireless transmission of electricity over long distances is practically impossible, as it quickly loses its power. Nevertheless, there are still people who believe that the free electricity Tesla dreamed of does not exist. They blame capitalists for this. For over 100 years, they have been trying to profit from us, and every month we pay for something that should actually be free. In support of this theory, it is worth noting that some influential American businessmen connected to electricity in the late 19th and early 20th centuries were aware of Tesla's theories and even spoke about them. However, nothing further came of it. Tesla's main opponents were not capitalists, but the laws of physics and his overly ambitious ideas. The failures he experienced in Colorado Springs negatively impacted his reputation, not only because he was unable to validate his theories and deceived an investor by spending funds on alternative research, but also due to rumors about his alleged connection with Martians. Tesla seriously claimed that his equipment in Colorado Springs detected a signal from Mars, which, of course, became a topic for newspaper publications. One of the leading scientists in the world claims that he managed to establish contact with extraterrestrials. What exactly these signals were remains unclear. One can assert with confidence that they were not extraterrestrial messages. Most likely, they were signals from stars or the sun, which are currently detected by radio telescopes. It is possible that Tesla got lost in the interpretation of a radio signal from Earth, mistaking it for a message from another planet. At that time, radio development was advancing rapidly. If Nikola Tesla had possessed entrepreneurial talent, he could have gone down in history as the inventor of radio. While Tesla was conducting controversial experiments in Colorado Springs, the Italian scientist Guglielmo Marconi successfully transmitted the first radio message across the English Channel. Some of the technologies that Marconi applied in his experiments were developed by Tesla. The scientist began experimenting with radio signal transmission right after his success with alternating current. Following Hertz's discovery of radio waves, many inventors. During his experiments, Nikola Tesla developed the world's first radio-controlled device, a small boat that could be operated from a distance. Tesla named this invention the teleautomaton. To ensure the successful operation of his teleautomaton, Tesla developed several fundamental technologies that later became the foundation for radio communication. If he had focused on this area at that time, his name might have remained in history as the inventor of radio. According to one version, his research was interrupted by a fire in his laboratory in New York. According to this version, the fire could have been orchestrated by Tesla's longtime rival Edison, but the main obstacle to success lay in Tesla's own ambitions. He envisioned a great future for the teleautomaton, a technology capable of ending wars on Earth. In his view, in the future, robots would fight instead of humans, and over time, they would become extraordinarily destructive. Tesla also contemplated wireless transmission of electricity, viewing wireless transmission of sound and messages as part of a broader concept. In 1900, at the height of his 40s, Tesla faced difficulties. Recovering from setbacks in Colorado Springs, he continued to pursue his ambitious idea of wireless energy transmission. However, attracting investors became increasingly challenging. Following failed experiments and unsubstantiated claims in the press, along with news about Martians, Tesla's reputation as an eccentric scientist began to suffer. It is difficult to convince investors of grand ideas for transmitting electricity, sound, and images wirelessly. They are interested in concrete and marketable products. And after the alternating current system, Tesla was unable to offer anything successful. Perhaps he realizes this, which is why he decides to use an old tactic. He requests funding for a clear yet promising invention, and under this pretext, continues his research in the field of wireless communication. Tesla reaches an agreement with the famous banker J.P. Morgan, who allocates $150,000 for the development of a wireless messaging system, a sort of telegraph. Morgan immediately warns the scientist that this is the final amount and that no further financial support will be provided. Tesla realizes that this is insufficient to realize his ambitious idea, but he hopes that once the investor sees the initial results, he will be willing to invest additional funds. Not waiting for funding, the inventor acquires a plot of land near New York and constructs an extensive laboratory called Wondercliff with a tall tower. He enlists an architect to design it, giving the building a futuristic appearance. At night, the tower sparkles with powerful electrical discharges. Tesla once again attempts to demonstrate the viability of his main idea, but without success. Meanwhile, Guglielmo Marconi successfully transmits a radio signal across the Atlantic. A few years later, he receives a patent for his technology in the United States. Although he used patented developments by Tesla in his design, the engineer, who had previously been dismissive of what is the main idea of his life, it truly works, but unfortunately, it remains unsuccessful. Several years later, the Italian physicist will receive the Nobel Prize for his achievements in the field of radio. Only half a century later, after Tesla's death, the court will affirm his rights to many of the technologies used by Marconi. Thus, Tesla can indeed be considered one of the inventors of radio. When the funds for the Wondercliff laboratory ran out, Tesla once again turned to J.P. Morgan for investments. The scientist presented the banker with his plan for creating global wireless communication, but Morgan preferred to invest in Marconi, who at that time was demonstrating tangible results. At some point, Tesla begins to realize that his idea may be flawed. He is unable to find new investors. This is precisely the time when significant royalties from his alternating current development could have been useful, but he declined them. Even if he had received them, it is likely that Tesla would have invested all the funds into his unpromising idea anyway. In the second half of his life, Tesla begins to be perceived not only as an eccentric scientist, but also as unhinged. He once again turns to esotericism and shows an interest in Eastern religious ideas about the soul, vibrations, and energy. There is an opinion that this may have contributed to his vow of celibacy. Tesla also shared a memory of how he once contacted the spirit of his deceased mother. Tesla contemplated the possibilities of telepathy and proposed the idea of a device for photographing thoughts. Considering his stories about Martians, one might get the impression that he was simply an urban madman. However, it is important to take the context into account. It seems that by the end of his life, Tesla truly faced serious mental health issues. Nevertheless, many of Tesla's strange ideas were popular among highly educated individuals. Questions about life on Mars were discussed seriously, and it is difficult to blame people for believing in them. All of this happened more than 50 years before the beginning of space exploration. Telepathy was a popular theory that emerged after Hertz's discovery. If it is possible to transmit radio signals at one frequency using a transmitter and receiver, then why not use the same principle to transmit thoughts between people? Today, we understand that this is impossible, but we are talking about the late 19th century. There were rumors that Tesla was involved in the Tunguska meteorite event in 1908. According to one theory, the explosion in the Siberian taiga was not caused by a meteorite, but rather by Tesla's experiments with the Wardenclyffe Tower. However, the inventor had completed his experiments several years prior, so it is unlikely that he could have been the cause of the Tunguska incident. If one closely examines the fates of Tesla's notable investors, an interesting event can be observed. John Jacob Astor, a pastor, will perish in 1912 as a result of the Titanic disaster. J.P. Morgan is supposed to. Engagement with the Wardenclyffe Tower. J.P. Morgan was set to sail on the Titanic, but changed his plans at the last moment. Just a coincidence? It all seems to be mere chance. If we set aside conspiracy theories and mysticism, we can observe that Tesla was experiencing a situation typical for an aging scientist. New scientific theories emerged that contradicted his views. He perceived this negatively. A similar situation occurred between Tesla and the young researcher Einstein. In the 1910s and 1920s, Tesla, who was already over 60 years old, felt that Einstein's ideas were steering science in the wrong direction. His opinions no longer interested the scientific community. He had lost relevance by investing his resources in alternating current developments. Nikola Tesla lives in debt, is poor, and constantly moves from one small hotel to another. Housekeepers complain about the mess in his room. His main companions become pigeons. He feeds them in the park and takes sick birds home with him. In his diary, Tesla describes a pigeon that he loved as a man loves a woman, and he claims that after her death, he lost the meaning of life. Tesla writes letters to Mark Twain even though the writer has been dead for a long time by that point. Occasionally, people remember Tesla and invite him to events. His photograph is published on the cover of Time magazine for his 75th anniversary, and leading scientists around the world express their gratitude to him. Nevertheless, Tesla spends most of his time in solitude and dies in his hotel room at the age of 86. After Tesla's death, many of his documents were confiscated by the FBI, which sparked numerous rumors that the scientist was developing secret weapons, particularly some sort of supergun based on radiation. This project did exist, but it resembled more of a plot from a sci-fi movie. The real reason for the FBI's interest was more down to earth. Tesla's nephew held the position of ambassador. Americans were concerned that important documents might fall into the hands of an ideological opponent. After Tesla's death, he was almost forgotten, and it was only with the rise of interest in Elon Musk's company that he began to be remembered again. This opinion, however, predominantly belongs to those who are far removed from science. It is this hype that brought Tesla back into public consciousness. Nevertheless, the scientific community has never forgotten Nikola Tesla. His discoveries regarding alternating current and his developments in the field of radio had a significant impact on science and humanity. A unit of measurement in physics is named in his honor, which is a privilege granted to very few. Many decades later, Tesla's ideas began to be realized. Today, we transmit information, images, and music wirelessly in just a few seconds to any point on the globe. Thus, we live in a world that was once merely a dream of Nikola Tesla. They have come to fruition. It seems that no text for editing has been provided. Please send a block of text that you would like me to work on, and I will be happy to assist you.